The Last of Us Season 2 Episode 5 is here, and I think people are wrong about it. This is a thought I've had building for a while, seeing a lot of very negative, very hyperbolic criticism episode after episode, but I feel like Episode 5 is a great example for discussing it directly. Breaking down what works so well about this episode, not that it's flawless, I do have some criticisms I'm going to make, but let's start with a more general point. When I say contrary to a lot of opinions I've seen online, that I think this episode is very well structured and well paced, and I'm going to largely summarise it to show you how. We start with their usual prologue scene, this one to set out that spores are a thing now, a thing they cut from the first season because wearing gas masks all the time would obscure facial reactions. I think that was a smart decision then, and I think introducing them now like it's a new development, like it's something that came out of a contained quarantine zone that's been largely sealed off since 2003, I think that's also a good decision. It feels like development in the world, which makes the world feel much less static, and I think it increases the impact now because it's so new to Ellie, and to us walking in here. It feels kind of shocking, I like it a lot. But scene 1 sets up spores are a thing, just a little ominous dagger to hang over our heads all episode. Then scene 2 is Dina saying, hey, we should take a sneaky route through this strange building that they don't seem to patrol properly. Why don't they patrol it? Probably some infected that they're politely ignoring, while we as an audience get to think, oh no, this is going to be to do with spores, there's probably spores there, Dina is in big danger. As it turns out, that's not quite what happens, but we'll get to that point later. Either way, it's built a feeling of dread now, especially after the last episode, ending with the two of them holding hands saying they're going to finish this together. Like, sure you are. Sure nothing's going to go wrong and split you apart. We got the threat, though, we got the sense they're heading towards it. Scene 3 is them then coming across the bodies of the executed Seraphites, and Ellie thinking, oh my god, Dina, you are having a baby, you should turn back, and Dina arguing no for solid character reasons involving her past. Stuff they alluded to quite well in episode 3, and also something much needed, I think. People have been pretty unanimous in their praise of Isabel Merced as Dina because she's very charismatic and fun, and she has great chemistry both with Ellie and Joel before. And I really like her too, but I've also felt like we haven't really known her. She's arguably appeared pretty flawless as a character in most ways. I want to see more, not necessarily her flaws, but some of her mess, some of her vulnerabilities. I'm glad to learn a bit of this stuff now, and to see that, like Ellie, okay, there is deep anger burning here beneath the surface of quippy fun. And I've said this before too, the jolly quippy banter the two of them share is partly a defense. Definitely for Ellie, one that makes a lot of sense when they both feel very romantically towards each other. There's been shades of them both trying to treat this all like it's a fun adventure getaway, like Ellie and Riley going to the arcade was, but it's not that. They both know it's not that. We start to see some of that defense finally peeling away. Finally, after Ellie goes to the guitar, sings one line, and then stares into a void. And after that moment, she looks so much more weary in most interactions this episode. The weight is really starting to hit them now. So there's a suggestion that Dina should turn back from this ominous place of spores we know they're heading towards, and Dina says no. The classic setup for tragedy, the way out being possible and yet not taken. Even the moment where they admit their love for each other feels ominous. That's a scene right before they enter the dark lair, and we all know this kind of trope. It's like when a character starts talking about wanting to see their family again, you know that character is going to die. When two people talk about love before heading into something dangerous, you know something is going to go wrong. More wrong than all of these great guitars decaying and all the stuff that wasn't built to last in a post-apocalyptic world where there's increasingly less people who know how to prepare them or build anew, how to fix circuit breakers or triangulate or design really, really good furniture that will last for many years. Thankfully, there are already people doing that in the real world. This video is sponsored by FlexiSpot, pioneers of well-designed, built-to-last office and home furniture, such as an adjustable desk for when you want a standing or sitting workspace, an ergonomic office chair, or the comfiest, coolest recliner I have ever lounged about in. Genuinely, FlexiSpot reached out to me about sponsorship with the potential of sending a free product to test, and I knew instantly I wanted the Lotus recliner in the orange-brown colour, something really well designed by a company that values quality control, sustainability, and materials that are either recyclable or have already been recycled. This is a chair with a very smooth 360-degree swivel, and equally smooth rocking motion, a lever so you can pull up the leg rest and recline, even a cool little compartment on the sides that we've put TV remotes and PS4 controllers in. Here's Hendrix in the chair, she's happy. If the grumpiest rabbit in the world is satisfied, it's a very good chair. And I love the padded armrest as well. It means if you want, you can tuck your legs up onto the chair and slope over the sides. It means you've got a nice good range of movement, which is handy if you want to hold a book or something. We play Baldur's Gate 3 in the evenings, and it's currently a rotation system of who gets to sit in a chair each night. We really want to get a second one of these at some point. I don't know if you can tell, but I am very passionate about this chair. You may have picked up a few signals in my tone suggesting it. It's just really well made. It's really relaxing. Took me very little time to assemble. You just add the Velcro padding to the base and slide in the backrest until it clicks. Job done. So if you fancy your own Lotus recliner, there's a wide range of colours as well as the standard, basic, smart and pro versions of the chair. And then there's also a ton of other products worth looking at. Just click the link in the description or the pinned comment and discover deals of up to 50% off running for the whole of May. This Lotus recliner has an £120 discount going for this month only, so give it a look. Go on, have a recline. Flexi spot. Yes, where were we? The dreads that something is building up and something's going to go wrong. They enter this building and tension ramps up more as we realise there are more and more infected in here. And everything does go wrong. Dina is going to die. That's the structure this episode has been building up. Ellie may even get ripped to shreds here. We remember episode 1 and how reckless they both were then, heading in to kill infected. All that brazen, arrogant teenage confidence that has been a part of their defense from feelings of helplessness. That scene where Ellie was bitten by one of these smarter infected and it should have served as a warning. Here they are again. They didn't heed that warning. Now they are going to die. And I audibly shouted, "Tommy!" and then it panned up to Jesse and I went, oh, not to be harsh on Jesse, I just talked a lot about what they've done with Tommy so far this season in my episode 3 video, so I've been looking forward to seeing him again. I think Ellie was even half expecting this to be Joel for a second. I think Tommy would have made sense in that regard, but Jesse naturally rushes them out of there because they've just fired gunshots and his concern is getting back to safety, not going after Abby. So they hurry into the park and we then get a quick but important moment for Jesse to stress, what the hell were you thinking? You were doing fine until you weren't. You were going to die. Remember in episode 3 when Gale told Tommy that some people just can't be saved, and inevitably Tommy disagreed and was going to be more motivated to try and save Ellie? Him and Jesse have literally tracked them to make sure they don't get themselves killed. Two kids who desire revenge but don't quite know what they're getting themselves into. But what if it's only Dina they're then able to bring home? Because Ellie has another thought on her mind. We then see a horrible execution, then Dina gets shot, Jesse has to rush her to safety, and Ellie sees a fork in the road. Follow after Dina, head back to safety, heed all of the warnings and close scrapes they've been having, or go for information about Abby. Dina or Abby? Ellie again does the reckless thing. In that regard, episode 5 is an episode of Ellie's desperation really coming to the surface. Her darkness, we could even say. The person she loves who's having a baby has just been shot. Sure, she's with Jesse and Ellie has successfully led the Seraphites away, but her first instinct is still to go after Abby rather than hurry back to see if Dina is okay. I think that says a lot. This is where revenge then leads. It starts out with talk about justice and all sorts of logic. They've even half been able to trick themselves into the sense of a fun adventure here, but now into the darkest, most hellish location we have seen yet. It feels like the pits of hell. Ellie catches up with Nora and tortures her. Even more so, she pulls the Tommy Lee Jones line and says she doesn't care what Joel did. She knows and she doesn't care. Which might not strictly be true, but it's not going to stop her attacking Nora with a pipe here. There's an interesting flip in that sense, where Nora is clearly traumatized by Joel's death, and yet tries to justify it. Ellie is also traumatized, but justifies nothing she's doing now. Remember in episode 3 where she was justifying and excusing everything and making all sorts of arguments about justice? All that matters is where's Abby. And again, the fact this is all happening while Dina has a leg wound and is likely still struggling to escape from the WLF soldiers surrounding the park makes it twice as impactful. The point is, structurally, this episode does a great job of taking Ellie away from all of the jokey, defense-driven, romantic Ellie into this. And I enjoy getting to see that progression happen. People have been so critical that Ellie wasn't like this from the beginning, but I'm glad she's not. We've got an entire other season before her arc from the game will reach its climax. And TV is a medium motivated far more by character progression than a video game needs to be, so we need more space for more progression in this show to build up. And in general, there have been a lot of complaints about the pacing this episode, and most episodes in general. It seems to be a vague thing people say, either that it's too slow or it's too rushed, but I think a lot of the time this comes down to how well or not you're following the structure of the episode. I think when you understand what is progressing, it makes a lot more sense. In that regards, I think the pacing is very good to tell the story this episode is trying to tell. Sure, it would have been interesting to spend more time in the park or have more of a struggle through the hospital, but also that might have detracted from what the focus was and devolved into a case of just things happening. I think what they're trying to do with Ellie this episode works quite well, but it's not flawless and it could have been clearer, and I think that's down to this moment. This choice comes too easily for Ellie. I don't think there's enough at stake, and I don't think there's enough consequence right now, because we know she's probably just going to be able to meet up with the others again anyway, and Dina will be wounded, but otherwise okay. I would have liked more of a dilemma to this choice, because I don't think it has enough impact for what it's meant to be, a turning point in Ellie as a character, that then culminates in torturing Nora, which I now hope will cause us to see next episode an even darker, even more lost Ellie. I don't think that's quite clear enough this episode, and I can understand in that sense why some people might find these scenes rushed if it feels hard to follow the actual story. Similarly, why what's developing in the early scenes this episode might feel slow to some people. I get that argument very well, but I still disagree and I still think it works. Does that make sense? I'm trying to say this succinctly because I think the longer I talk, the more work I have to edit this video in a single day. I only finished watching the episode half an hour ago. Shall we discuss Ellie directly then? Because I think there's a bigger point to be made here. The two main complaints this episode are against Ellie, and it's the two complaints we've seen generally this series. One, that Ellie is not dark and aggressive and full of enough rage, and two, Ellie isn't capable enough. And I've sort of addressed the first point already. Ellie hasn't completely lost herself to this revenge quest yet. It's building. Give it time. I personally would have liked to have seen her gone more by now. I wanted the kind of development we've started to get here to happen in episode 4, and I made my criticisms clear about that last video. If we end season 2 and then season 3 and Bella Ramsey does never take it up an extra notch from here, I will be disappointed, but I'm not disappointed right now. So far, I get what they're doing, and I think it's the right decision for a show, even if it is happening slightly slower than I would have liked. There are a lot of complaints made against their acting, which I understand to an extent. I said in my season 1 videos, when you compare the Ashley Johnson lines against Bella Ramsey lines 1 for 1, I think Ashley Johnson's lines hit me harder, but that's also not the point. Even in lines where the dialogue is word for word the same, they are still trying to do different things. Bella has more freedom and space to do a lot of other things with the character because of this different medium. And what Bella does, I still really like. I think they do a great job of letting a total void creep up on Ellie's face more and more. You see it when she attacks Nora as well, how dead she looks inside, haunted but empty.
Huh. Just like us.
But this Ellie is kind of different. Case in point, she's less capable than what I'm told she's like in the second game. Here, Ellie does make a lot of dumb decisions, and Dina has functioned very well to rein her in on those things. No, let's not hurry straight to the tower in broad daylight. No, let's not keep going when we should take shelter for a storm. Let's take time to triangulate. Let's not charge in and immediately shoot. Okay, that last one happens anyway, but you get the point. Ellie is very impulsive and not very cautious, and sometimes sometimes not very sensible, which I've said in past videos makes a lot of sense for someone who has been hit with so much survivor's guilt, had her immunity idealised, and is terrified of feeling helpless and lacking purpose. I've talked about how part of Ellie's motivation to keep on charging in recklessly might be self-destructive. And I find all of this really interesting. I much prefer flawed characters to very capable ones. It also creates more space for a clearer dynamic with Dina, and it highlights exactly what Ellie will be missing should Dina turn back or else die at some point. Dina really matters as a character because she knows how to talk to Ellie, how to reach her, how to rein her in. Her strengths make up for Ellie's weaknesses, and that will make the idea of Ellie going ahead alone in the future feel far more tragic and far more dangerous. The idea of Dina not being there worries me. Ellie is not a seasoned hunter in the show. She is a scared, reckless child trying to act like a seasoned hunter out of desire for revenge. I find it really tragic. Next episode seems set to give us a load of flashbacks to highlight who Ellie has lost in Joel, but I think the many sweet moments we've already gotten with Dina will later highlight what Ellie has lost within herself when she's alone and descending further into rage and darkness. Something I want to highlight though, probably my favourite moment from this episode, is actually Dina triangulating everyone's positions and Ellie bouncing into the room because she's got the lights on, hoping it excites Dina, and then standing there just wanting something to do.
Can I help? No.
The second Dina suggests Ellie is not school-oriented, Ellie is then eager to prove her wrong before immediately getting overwhelmed by the word protractor and backing out to find a different distraction.
I'm gonna leave you alone now and go and explore the rest of this place.
Show Ellie is often seeking more stimulation, and I find that really interesting. I don't want to diagnose anyone either. I hate doing that with characters. I've talked about how difficult it is to be accurate, and there are definitely a lot of alternative possibilities here, such as trauma itself. But all of this does strike me as a very ADHD interaction. Kirsty has ADHD, and I swear I've had this exact exchange with her before. I find it really charming here, and there have been other signs in other episodes that have made me think of this before, but I've not played the second game. I'd be curious to know if she's like this there as well, or if this is a difference they've made for the game. Either way, I think it's too easy for criticisms of this show to get caught up comparing to the game, rather than to engage with what we're given. And my argument is a bit weak there because I haven't played the game. In my Season 1 videos I tried to avoid comparing that too much to Game 1, nor do I think there's anything wrong with people saying they prefer the game version of how things happen. That's fine, but I do think there is something wrong with saying this is bad because it's different. So many reviews have been so negative, like this is a terrible show. An adaptation can be different. It can even be not as good. I think it should be different, but either way, better or worse, it can still work very well in its own way, and I think this season does work. I think this is another pretty solid episode that I'd give 8, maybe 7 out of 10 rather than a 9 because of the lack of impact here. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think, good or bad. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe, maybe even support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee, but otherwise, hopefully see you next time. And as ever, a special thank you goes to Flying Spider, Kellyanne Davidson, Luke Orr, Michael Gallagher, Benry, Joshua C. Follier, and Chad Bramwell. Thank you.